Psalm 22 is regarded by many Christians as a prophetic foreshadowing of Jesus' crucifixion. Here are some key excerpts that are often highlighted. Psalm 22, verses 1 to 2. My God, why hast thou forsaken me? Why art thou so far from helping me, and from the words of my roaring? O my God, I cry in the daytime, but thou hearest not, and in the night season, and am not silent. Psalm 22, verses 6 through 8. But I am a worm, and no man, a reproach of men, and despised of the people. All they that see me laugh me to scorn. They shoot out the lip, they shake the head, saying, He trusted on the Lord that he would deliver him. Let him deliver him, seeing he delighted in him. Psalm 22, verses 14 to 18. I am poured out like water, and all my bones are out of joint. My heart is like wax, it is melted in the midst of my bowels. My strength is dried up like a potsherd, and my tongue cleaves to my jaw. And thou hast brought me into the dust of earth, dust of death. For dogs have compassed me, the assembly of the wicked have enclosed me. They pierced my hands and my feet, I may tell all my bones. They look and stare upon me. They part my garments among them, and cast lots upon my vesture. These passages are seen as closely paralleling the events of Jesus' crucifixion as described in the New Testament. Matthew 27:46 and Mark 15, verse 34 record Jesus crying out, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? Matthew 27:39-43 and Mark 15:29-32 describing people mocking Jesus and challenging him to save himself. John 19, verse 28 speaks of Jesus' thirst. John 19, verse 23-24 recounts the soldiers casting lots for Jesus' garments, or bidding on them, essentially, betting for his clothing. The striking similarities between Psalm 22 and the crucifixion narrative have led many to view this psalm as a prophetic depiction of Jesus' suffering and death. Jesus quoting Psalm 22 on the cross, specifically the opening verse, my God, why have you forsaken me? Why hast thou forsaken me? Matthew 27:46, Mark 15:34, holds deep theological and emotional significance. Here are some reasons why he might have done so. So 1, expression of suffering and abandonment. The cry expresses profound anguish and a sense of abandonment. By quoting this psalm, Jesus is vocalizing the intense physical and spiritual suffering he is experiencing. It conveys the depth of his agony as he bears the sins of the world. Fulfillment of Scripture, number 2. By quoting Psalm 22, Jesus highlights the fulfillment of Old Testament prophecy. This psalm, written centuries before, vividly describes suffering and mockery that closely parallels the events of the crucifixion. Jesus' reference to it understands the continuity between the Old Testament prophecies and their fulfillment in his life and death. Number 3, identification in humanity. In quoting Psalm 22, Jesus identifies with human suffering and feelings of abandonment. It shows that he fully participates in the human experience, including its most painful aspects. This identification is a crucial aspect of the Christian understanding of the Incarnation. Number 4, pointing to the whole psalm. By quoting the first verse, Jesus may have been pointing to the entire psalm. Although Psalm 22 begins with a cry of despair, it ultimately ends on a note of trust and hope in God's deliverance. This could indicate that Jesus, even in his moment of greatest suffering, trusted in God's ultimate plan and deliverance. Number 5, encouraging reflection and study. Jesus' audience, familiar with the Hebrew Scriptures, might have recognized the reference and been prompted to reflect on the entire psalm. This would lead them to consider not only the suffering depicted, but also the psalm's ultimate message of faith and deliverance. We'll get back to that one here in the end. In sum, Jesus quoting Psalm 22 on the cross serves to express his profound suffering, fulfilled prophecy, identify with human anguish, point to a greater narrative of trust in God, and encourage deeper reflection on the Scriptures. Psalm 22 is traditionally attributed to King David, who lived around 1000 BC. While the exact date of its composition is not definitively known, it is generally believed to have been written during David's reign, which was approximately from 1010 to 970 BC. Thus, Psalm 22 was likely composed in the early first millennium, roughly 3,000 years ago. The psalm reflects David's own experience and emotions, which have been interpreted by Christians as prophetically pointing to the suffering of Jesus on the cross. King David, traditionally regarded as the author of many of the Psalms, is often seen in Christian theology as a prophetic figure whose writings foreshadow the coming of Jesus Christ. Several passages in the Psalms attributed to David are interpreted as prophecies about the life, suffering, death, and resurrection of Jesus. Here are some of those key examples. So, Psalm 22, verses 1 and 2, my God, why have you forsaken me?" Quoted by Jesus on the cross. Verses 6 through 8, "But I am a worm and no man, a reproach of men and despised of the people." So Jesus was hated by everybody as a worm. It goes back to the Kermes worm that they used for dye. It would suck itself to a tree, and then it would provide offspring, and those offspring would then eat the mother. But I am a worm. How the worm sticks to that tree, Jesus was stuck to a tree, or the cross, a wooden cross made from a tree, obviously. Anyway, a reproach of men and despised of the people. All they that see me laugh me to scorn. They shoot out the lip, they shake the head. So it's, the Jewish way of flipping the bird, essentially. He trusted on the Lord that he would deliver him. Let him deliver him, seeing he delighted in him. Reflects the mockery. He trusted on the Lord that he would deliver him. Let him deliver him, seeing he delighted in him. It reflects the mocking Jesus face. Basically, Matthew 27, verses 39 to 43. And then verses 14 to 18. I am poured out like water, and all my bones are out of joint. So, poured out like water, Jesus was stabbed in the side, impaled, and it mentions that blood and water flowed out of his body. I can't pronounce the word of the thing that they ruptured, but yes. Anyway, and all of my bones are out of joint. As he's nailed to the cross, it would make sense that as he's walking up this cross all over the place, his joints are popping out of place and dislocations and that stuff. My heart is like wax; it is melted in the midst of my bowels. My strength is dried up like a potsherd. Potsherd is like an old dried out piece of pottery. And my tongue cleaves to my jaws. So as he was dehydrated, losing all this blood, not to mention it's hot in the Middle East, tongue sticking to the inside of his mouth. His strength's dried up, obviously, makes sense. For dogs have compassed me, the assembly of the wicked have enclosed me. So dogs have compassed me. The Bible, especially back in this time, refers to people as animals. So dogs would be like, it wouldn't be like, "Yo, what's up, dog?" Like we would say maybe today, but it's these dogs, these lesser beings, essentially. For dogs have compassed me, the assembly of the wicked have enclosed me. They pierced my hands and my feet. I may tell all my bones. I may tell all my bones, meaning I could count all my bones. I can see all my bones. They look and stare upon me. They part my garments among them and cast lots upon my vesture. So they've already stripped Jesus of all the clothing he was wearing, and obviously you couldn't just go to Walmart back then. So clothing was a sought after commodity, and so these people are bidding and betting for Jesus's clothing, not because he's Jesus, but because clothing was super valuable, and that's definitely something that happened. Descriptions. Cast lots upon my vesture. Descriptions closely parallel the crucifixion events in John 19, verses 23 to 24 and 28 to 29. Psalm 16, verses 8 to 11. This is another one from David. I have set the Lord always before me, because he is at my right hand. I shall not be moved. Therefore my heart is glad, and my glory rejoiceth. My flesh also shall not... my flesh also shall rest in hope. For thou wilt not leave my soul in hell, neither wilt thou suffer thine Holy One to see corruption. Thou wilt shew me the path of life. In thy presence is fullness of joy, and thy right hand there are pleasures for evermore. Interpreted as a prophecy of Jesus' resurrection, cited by Peter in Acts 2, verses 25 to 31, and by Paul in Acts 13, verses 35 to 37. Another psalm by David, Psalm 110, verse 1. The Lord said unto my Lord, Sit thou at my right hand until I make thine enemies thy footstool. Jesus references the psalm to point to his divine authority in Matthew 22, verse 44, and Mark 12, verse 36. Also in Luke 20, verses 42 to 43. Verse 4, The Lord hath sworn and will not repent. Thou art a priest forever after the order of Melchizedek. I am not good with biblical names. My son's name is Malachi, though. Anyway, cited in Hebrews 5:6 and 7:17 to emphasize Jesus' eternal priesthood. These psalms, written by David, are seen by Christians as containing prophetic insights that align with the life and mission of Jesus Christ. David's role as a king and a prophet in the Old Testament underscores the messianic expectations that Jesus believed to fulfill in the New Testament. So, the Jewish people, the people of Judaism, did not believe Jesus was the true Messiah, and even Jews today, there are Jews today that do not believe that. So the belief that Jesus was not the Messiah is rooted in Jewish expectation and interpretation of messianic prophecies. Here are some key reasons why many Jews did not and do not believe Jesus was the Messiah. So first, messianic expectations. Jewish expectations of the Messiah traditionally include the establishment of an earthly kingdom of peace, justice, and prosperity. The Messiah was expected to be a political and military leader who would liberate Israel from foreign domination and restore the Davidic kingdom. Jesus' role as a spiritual leader and his crucifixion did not align with these expectations. Again, these weren't things that the Bible said would happen, or the Torah, the Old Testament. It was just what the Jews expected. Biblical prophecies. Jews interpret messianic prophecies in the Hebrew Bible differently from Christians. For instance, Isaiah 53, often cited by Christians as a prophecy of Jesus' suffering, is interpreted by many Jews as referring to the suffering of Israel as a nation or a righteous individual within Israel rather than a specific messianic figure. Fulfillment of prophecies. Jews believe that certain key prophecies were not fulfilled by Jesus. These include the ingathering of the exiles, the rebuilding of the temple in Jerusalem, the ushering in an era of world peace, and the universal recognition of the God of Israel. Since these events did not occur during Jesus' time, many Jews do not recognize him as the Messiah. So, Jesus rebuilding the temple, They thought the physical, actual temple would be rebuilt, and there's just a lot of misunderstood prophecy fulfillments there. We'll get into one here in just a second, and it's one of my favorites and quite profound. The divine nature of Jesus. The Christians' belief in Jesus as the Son of God and part of the Trinity is incompatible with Jewish monotheism. Judaism maintains a strict belief in the oneness of God, and the idea of a divine Messiah is foreign to Jewish theology. So they didn't understand that the Trinity and the three beings but one God, right? So best way I've understood the Trinity or been able to understand the Trinity is think of H2O. It has three different forms. You can have water, liquid water, you can have ice, and you can have steam, or a gaseous form of water, but it's still all H2O. So it's three different forms, but it's all still the same thing. Anyway, historical context. At the time of Jesus, there were various individuals who claimed to be the Messiah, and the political situation was tumultuous. Crazy word there. The failure of Jesus to lead a successful revolt against the Romans and his subsequent execution as a criminal further reinforced the belief that he was not the expected Messiah. Continuity of Jewish tradition. Judaism is rooted in a long tradition of interpretation and understanding of the scriptures. the Torah, the Old Testament, the teachings of Jesus in the New Testament writings diverged significantly from traditional Jewish teachings, leading to a separate religious movement, Christianity, rather than a continuation of Judaism. So again, they didn't believe that Jesus was the Messiah, so they're like, well, this is not our religion. So it got separated there. In summary, the Jewish rejection of Jesus as the Messiah is based on different interpretations of messianic prophecies, expectations of the Messiah's role, and theological principles. Christianity and Judaism developed distinct understandings of these concepts, leading to the divergence in belief regarding Jesus's messianic identity. So again, we don't believe what you're saying is what we believe. Your religion's not our religion. All right, so Jesus dying on the cross. Let's go back to that Psalms 22. The Jewish people would have been very familiar with Psalm 22. Psalms is Old Testament. It was in the Torah. As Jesus was being crucified on the cross, he cried out the beginning of Psalm 22. So, why, my God, why have you forsaken me? Yes, I do believe there was truly anguish and Jesus was suffering 100% because he was fully man, right? He's fully man and fully God. But I think this was deeper than that. He was calling out this first verse of Psalms 22, so the Jewish people would then recall Psalms 22 and the prophecy therein and recognize, or in Jesus' hope was that they would recognize that this Psalms 22 was truly talking about Jesus, because the Jews, a lot of people would believe this was about David or just some kind of prayer song. So Psalms were prayers, but they were prayers with music. So they were sung. I don't know if they were actually sung out loud, but I know that there was music behind them. So a lot of people will tell you Psalms are songs. But anyway, the Psalms 22 referring to all of these things back to Jesus, he calls this out on the cross while being crucified. So all the Jewish people, it was like a last-ditch effort to be like, look, think about this verse, think about this prophecy. I'm fulfilling it right now. This is happening. And I just think that is so very profound. He wanted to show the Jewish people he, in fact, was the true Messiah. So, thanks for watching, guys. I will see you on the next one.